Hi there, welcome back. We're going to be doing chapter 5 today, the modify tools, in this wonderful program that is AutoCAD. So if you would please direct your focus towards the screen, we shall jump into modify tools. Okay, so you should remember that we're going to be using a ISO template for our new drawings, okay, and there it is over there, AutoCAD ISO.dwt. That's how we're going to start a new one. Okay, here's a new drawing. So the tools that we're going to be discussing today are, you're going to find them up here, okay? These are the modified tools. Move, rotate, mirror, etc. We'll get through all of them in turn. We're going to start off with erase, okay? That one's pretty simple. I'm going to draw some stuff first so that we can actually erase it and see what its effect will be. Okay. Let's draw a circle. Okay, super. So there's a couple ways to erase things. The simplest is just to select the object. Okay, I'm just going to delete this rectangle and then press the delete key on your keyboard. They move around sometimes. They're different here. If you're a laptop or a regular desktop user, they put them in different places. But you will find a delete key, and when you press it, you'll notice the object disappears. Okay, that's by far the easiest. The other way is simply to select the geometry you want to delete. I can go to this little pencil eraser thing. I click it once. There we go, it's gone. Okay, real simple. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. So that's the far bottom left key on your keyboard. Press that and Z at the same time. That'll give you undo. Okay, you'll step back one action, like going back in time. And if you don't want to use the keyboard shortcut, you can find it up here on the interface. Okay, right there it is. It's like a little arrow pointing left into the past, and then I can actually redo as well. So I undid that erase, but now if I decided I actually want to go back, I can hit the redo button, which is going like forward in time. Okay, it's pretty much the only time you're going to get a time machine is this. If only life had an undo function, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's the erase tool, pretty simple. And of course, like with most tools, you don't have to select the geometry and then click erase. You can also do it backwards. I can draw something here. I can go to the erase tool first, and then it's going to ask me what I want to erase. So I just select these objects, I hit enter, and it's gone. Okay, real simple. The next tool we're going to look at is Next tool we're going to look at is move. So I'm going to just draw some stuff over here. Okay, it's like a Lego man or something. So I'm going to select these, and most of these tools work a little bit easier by selecting the object first instead of selecting the tool first, but you can figure out what you're more comfortable with. I can move up here to this little intersection looking icon. That's the move icon. I can click that once, okay, and it's going to ask me to specify a base point. So this is the point that you're going to start moving from. So if you have an idea of some geometry that you want to move this to, it helps to think ahead of time where you're going to kind of grab the corner of the geometry, before you start moving it. So I'm going to grab it from this corner over here, and you'll see then whenever I move it around, it stays stuck to my cursor at that corner, at that base point that I specified in this case, which was the top right corner of this rectangle. And then you'll see my polar tracking is working like it should. And I can just drag my mouse now. I've only clicked once. I can just drag it in any direction that I want to move the thing. And if I want to move it a specific distance, I can type that in. Okay, right now it's telling me, if I read next to my cursor there, 957 point something millimeters. Okay, if I want to move it exactly 1,000, I don't click yet. I just type in 1,000, enter. And there we go, it moved to 1,000. Okay, I'll give you a more contextual example here. Let's say that I want to move this rectangle so that this corner right here lines up with that corner. Okay, so I'm going to select this, and the other way we can use the move tool instead of pressing this little intersection icon is to just type M. Okay, M, enter. There we go. It's going to ask me to specify my base point. So we know that I want this corner to touch there, so I'm going to use this as my base point. And then it's going to say, where's my second point? I'm going to select it there, and because I've got snapping turned on, it's going to clip onto that corner for me there. There we go. Okay, so that's a really simple way to use the move tool. I find M is just the easiest for me, just like that. Okay. Rotate, that's the next one. So let's put a rectangle down there, and let's use a polyline as well. I haven't used that in a long while. Okay, let's give me an arc, A for arc. Let's go back to a line. Cool, okay, got a rectangle and a polyline. So let's rotate these things. So I can select the object, I can go up here to my little rotate. You see it's got that little circular arrow. I can click that, and like the move tool, it's going to ask me to specify the base point, okay? But the base point, when it comes to rotating, think of it as the axis of rotation, okay? So if I was to take my page and I grab it here as my base point, that's how it's going to rotate, okay? If I grab it down here, let's say, it's going to rotate like that. So check this out. My base point, I'm going to click up here, top left, and now you'll see I can just drag my mouse around and it'll rotate around that point that I specified. If I want to give it a specific degree, okay, I don't just want to do it like freestyle like this, I can type in like, 45. So it's actually asking me right now, specify rotation angle. I'm just type in 45. Remember, I've just clicked once to place the base point. I've just been moving my mouse around. Now I'm going to type 45. Okay, there we go. And I'm panning by using the middle mouse button, remember, okay, panning. And we can see that I rotated exactly 45. And that's perfect, okay? So, yeah, there's really not much more to go into about that tool. It's dead simple, okay? That's rotate. So, copy is the next command that we're going to use, and you're going to use this all the time, okay? If you draw a chair or a table and you decide you want to put it in another room in the house, you're going to need to copy the chair. Why draw it again, okay? So, let's say that this is a... I'm going to use the grips. I'm going to make this into something that looks like a chair, perhaps. Okay, imagine this is a tub chair and you're looking at it from the top. Okay, let's say I've got this tub chair and I want to make a couple copies of it. So I'm going to select the tub chair, and remember I can select the tool first or the object, doesn't matter. So I'm selected the chair and I'm going to go to copy over here. Okay, it's this little thing, looks like a little white circle and a couple of blue circles underneath it. So it's asking me to specify a base point again. This is quite common, and this is the point at which it's going to, place all the new copies at. So I'm going to say this top corner here, okay. And now it's asking me to specify a second point. So the first part of the tool is almost like moving it, okay. It's going to ask me where do I want to place the first copy. So I'm going to say I want it to be, let's say 1,400 in this direction, okay? I'm going to type that in because I can be specific this way as well instead of just clicking. Okay, there, you can see it drops a copy for me at 1,400 millimeters from that base point to that base point, okay? But it's still giving me a second object attached to the cursor. That's because I can just carry on clicking wherever I want, and it's going to keep on dropping copies all over the place, okay? And if I decided that I wanted in line, I can just make sure that my polar tracking is turned on, and then I can just drop a long line of them, If you want to say put 5 of them down and space them all equally, well, there's another command for that. That's called array, and we are going to cover that soon. But so that's one way to use copy. And the other way to do it, and if you're familiar with working in pretty much any other program like a word processor on Windows or Mac for that matter, you can, there's a keyboard shortcut for copy and paste, okay? So to copy, you hit Control-C together. You press those two keys. So I'm going to say Control-C. I've got the object selected first. And then I'm going to hit Control-V, or paste. Okay, Control-V. And there, it's just giving me that insertion point now. I can click, and I pasted a copy. And if I hit Control-V again, I can paste a second copy. Okay, Control-V. And I can keep on doing this for as many copies as I want. All right? So that's one way to, or at least another way to make copies. And then the last way that I'm going to cover is being able to place a copy at a specific angle. So you saw how, I'm going to use the icon again. You saw how I clicked here for the base point, and then I specified this one sliding out along this polar axis here, 180 degrees. Well, let's say I wanted to stick it to say 45 degrees. If I didn't have that in my polar snapping, let's not choose 45, let's choose 30 rather, okay? If you remember, if I want to specify a, or if you want to specify a degree in AutoCAD, you need to use that, that little symbol, okay? I'll just draw it in my hand for you there. Okay, it's that little symbol, or it might be flipped around in the video, shit. Okay, anyway, but it's the one next to the M key, okay, or above your comma, above the comma key. So we're going to type that symbol, There it is, looks like that. You can have a look at it on the screen there. And now I'm going to type the angle that I want. So let's say 30 degrees, enter. So now you'll see that I haven't clicked yet, but my mouse is now stuck along that 30-degree axis, which is perfect. And now I can still choose how far along that axis I want to put it. So right now it's at 888 millimeters away from the original at 30 degrees. So let's say I want it at 30 degrees, 1,000 away. I just type in 1,000. There we go. Okay, and I can double check this, remember, by using a line tool. I can click on this corner, I can go to there, and yes, indeed, it is 1,000 millimeters away at 30 degrees. Okay, so that's one way to be quite specific about using the copy tool. And the next thing, one more thing, you can copy between drawings as well. So if I start a new drawing here, it's going to be called drawing 2. Let's draw a rectangle that's tall, like that. I can click this one and I'm going to hit Control C, okay, to copy, Control C. I'm going to go back to drawing 1 and hit Control V. There you go. As long as I got both drawings open, I can copy and paste in between drawings, okay? So that's quite helpful if somebody gives you a drawing and says like, oh, here I drew the car, and you're like, cool, thanks, I have a garage, just put it in. You open his drawing, you open your drawing with the garage, copy the car, paste it into your drawing. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, as they say. And the next one we're going to look at is trim, okay? So let me set something up here that will explain the tool a bit better. Okay, so I can abstract painting. Okay, so the trim command basically allows you to kind of like snip segments away from objects, okay, where it touches another object or where it intersects or something like that. So I'm just going to demonstrate by using the tool. That's probably the quickest way to get the point across. So I'm going to select my trim tool, which is, where is my trim tool? There it is there. Okay, it looks like a pair of scissors. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to ask me to select objects or select all. So we're going to try the first way of this command first, which is to select a couple of objects. So let's say I want to trim this rectangle, I want to trim these lines, and I want to trim this circle. This geometry I'm going to leave alone, okay? So I've selected these objects. I'm going to hit enter to move on to the next step of the tool. Okay, now it's saying select object to trim or shift select to extend. So forget about that last part. We're just going to start selecting objects we want to trim. And you'll see that I haven't clicked yet, but as I move my mouse over the object, it fades away into the distance, and it's giving me a preview of what that trim command is going to do. If I were to click this line right now, you see it's going to cut it away. And if I go to this line here, and you'll see that it's choosing it between the 2 points where it intersects with this rectangle, okay? If I go to the outside, you'll see it selects the outside part of that line up to the point where it touches with the rectangle. So, and I can also trim other shaped things as well, like a circle. Have a look here. I haven't clicked yet, but let's click now. There, it's trimmed that piece of circle, okay? I can trim this one here. This one, it's going to, will it trim? Oh, it did trim. Okay, cool. So you can see that I have now, if I've drawn a bunch of intersecting geometry and I want to get rid of certain parts and clip parts out, I can do that by using the trim tool, okay? So I can it'll let me trim that and that. Okay, so you remember that I hit enter now to complete. Remember that when we used this tool, I selected some objects first to trim. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo here a few times, just once. If I am too lazy to select just the objects that I want to trim, or I know that I'm going to be performing a lot of trimming all over my drawing, I don't have to select the objects individually first. I can just hit enter at that step of the command, and it will effectively select everything in my drawing. So let me give an example here. I'm going to go back to the trim command. It's going to say select objects or, and then it gives me those two little pointy brackets, select all. So if I just hit enter right now, it's basically selected everything. It doesn't seem like it has, but it has, okay? Wait till I actually start trying to trim. Now I'm going to move my mouse around. You'll see it's giving me that to trim, it's giving me that, it's giving me that. As if I had actually selected all these objects. Okay, let's trim that, okay. I can just carry on in this way until I've trimmed all the geometry away that I want and I'm happy with the result. Okay, then I can hit enter. So I can either select a couple of objects, or if I want to select everything, I just hit enter at that step of the command. And then I can trim, like, go boss with the trim tool. So that's quite a useful little one. Okay, that's trim. And the keyboard shortcut for that is just TR. Remember, if you look at the top of your notes there, says trim in gray, which is the full command name, but you can always abbreviate it usually, and so the abbreviation for trim is just TR. Okay, TR, enter. Here we go, TR, enter. There we go. It's giving me the trim tool. It's that quick. We're going to do extend next. This is an interesting little thing. If you're drawing steps, maybe, there's all kinds of features that you'll end up using this for. Maybe you just want to join two corners together. I'm actually going to use, excuse me, what am I drawing here? What the hell? Okay, so we're going to use the extend command, and I'm going to just type EX for this. You can also find it, where is it? Up here. It is trim, extend. Okay, so it's hidden underneath the trim command. So if you're looking around, you can't find it, just remember to click on these little drop down arrows. There's always extra things hidden there. In this case, it's hidden next to there. Okay, extend. So what extension does is I can click on a line, and I can click on a crossing object, or a fence as it calls it sometimes, and that is the point to which the line will extend. So if this is my line, I hope you can see this, and it's a little bit short here, this is the line that I'm going to extend it to. If I didn't have that line there, this line would just extend infinitely. Okay, I don't want that. I want it to extend up to this line. So you'll see now we're going to do that. So I drew some geometry. I selected that tool. Okay, it's asking me now to select objects. So I'm going to select this one, oh hell, I'm going to select all of them, and this one as well. Okay, enter. Now it's going to say select object to extend. So you'll see as I move over here, and I haven't clicked yet, pops it out. Okay, it's extending that line over that gap until it touches that line. So I'm going to click there, and then I can continue clicking. I want to extend that line, that line, that line, that line. Now you'll see when I get to this one, because if I were to extend it from this point to this point, it's never going to hit another line. Okay, there's not a piece of geometry there, a circle or a polyline or something else that's going to obstruct it from extending to infinity. So you'll see that as I go over it, it says path does not intersect with bounding edge. Okay, it won't let me extend the line because it needs to have a point at which it would meet with another line somewhere. That's how it calculates how much you want to extend it. So right now I've just extended these 5 lines, so I'm going to hit enter. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's a good example of the extend command. So let's say that you were drawing 2 edges of a handrail like this, and you're drawing a bunch of steps. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that again. Okay, don't draw steps as badly as that. Takes some more time to do it. And then let's say you had it over here, and then you decide, oh, it's a bit narrow. I've got to get 2 people up this flight of stairs. Maybe I should make it a little bit wider. So I'm going to move this over, and then I could click on these lines individually and grab the grip and then drag it out like that. That's a little bit tedious. Okay, if you've got a couple of lines, maybe sure, but if you want to extend like 30 steps or something in one go, you can kind of just run the extend command. That's what it's there for. So I'm going to go to that extend command now. I'm going to select these objects, enter to move on to the next step. And now, instead of selecting these individually, I'm going to use that selection window. I'm just going to drag around all of them, and you'll see there, it's just extended all of them at once. Okay, that's a cool way to use the extend tool also. So the next one we're going to look at is chamfer. And chamfer is like putting a bevel on something. If you look at, like, say, the edge of a kitchen counter or something, there's usually a kind of a slightly soft edge. It's not like a perfectly sharp, like as if you cracked a piece of glass, because that'd be really uncomfortable. People rub their elbows in the corner of desks, or if it's a kitchen surface, they work on it all the time. So a lot of corners you'll find have these sort of chamfers on it. It's that little like 45-degree like chip that's been taken off the edge, and this applies to the interior and architectural world as well, where you maybe just want to connect something across the corner like this. That's a sharp corner, but a chamfer would be to basically slice the corner away like that. So I'm going to use my trim command to make it a little bit more understandable. Okay, that would be chamfering the corner basically, but that was a long way of doing it. There's a command especially for that, or a tool in any case. So I'm going to give an example here. Let's draw a rectangle, and let's draw a line, 90-degree corner there also. Okay, so let's select the chamfer tool. So it's going to be underneath here. You see, right now it's fillet and it's got a curved corner, but if I click underneath there's chamfer, the 45-degree. So with the chamfer tool selected, it's asking me to select my first line. So ignore this right now. The first time you use chamfer tool, the distance of the chamfer, which is how big it is going to be set at 0. So before you select anything, you need to press the D key for distance, or you can select it down here. You see the D is highlighted in blue. I can click it, or I can press enter in D and hit enter. Specify the first chamfer distance. So if we're going to chamfer this corner up here, the first chamfer distance would be the distance from this corner point back along the line to where I want that chamfer to begin. So in this case, I'm going to choose, let's do 200. Why not? Now the second chamfer distance is the distance from this corner down on the other line. Okay, so you don't have to have a perfectly 45. It can be a little bit uneven on each side. So I'm going to make this one 200 anyway, and we'll do it again with a different measurement so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, now I've hit enter. Okay, now it understands that it wants a 200 distance for the top of the chamfer and a 200 for the bottom or the other side. It's asking me to select that first line again. I can go ahead and select it. Click. Did I get it? No, I got it. And now the second line there. Now before I've even clicked, it's already showing me the result of the chamfer. But I'm happy with that. 200 looks good. So I'm going to click again. End of tool. Okay, it completed for me. The chamfer is done, and there it is. And you'll see that because I chamfered a line, it's given me still separate lines here. If I was to chamfer polyline, which I'll show you, it'll keep it as one object. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to use the button instead of the shortcut. Okay, there we go. Let's try that again. So I'm going to do a different chamfer distance now. I'm going to select the first line, and it's still giving me option to change the distance, which I should. The first chamfer distance is giving me 0 again. Let's try. I'll stick with 300. Let's do 300. Second chamfer distance. Let's make this half that distance. Okay, only 150. Now I'm going to select my second line. There you go. So you see it's now 300 away from that corner. Okay, and it's only 150 down, and so it's giving me that uneven chamfer, which is what I wanted. So that's great. And then the last way I'll show you is how to do it to a polyline. So we've got this rectangle here, which is a type of polyline, and I'm going to go to the chamfer tool, and now it's saying it's giving me an option to select a polyline here. I do want that, so I'm going to hit P or click on polyline. Now it's going to say select 2D polyline. I'm just going to check my distance is still good. So I'm going to hit D for distance, 300. Yep, that's fine. Second distance, 150. No, I want this to be 300 also. Okay, now it's going to say select polyline. Yep, there we go. You'll see as I click, there. So now it's given me 300 chamfer on all corners of that polyline, or rectangle in this case, and if I click it, it still selects as one object. Okay, and I can explode that as well, but don't worry about that for now. So that was the chamfer tool, and the good news is the next tool, which is fillet. Fillet works exactly the same way, but instead of giving you a hard 45 or whatever the angle is, a crisp edge like that, you're going to have a rounded, smooth edge. Okay, a bull nose is sometimes what people refer to it as. So I'm going to just get rid of this. Let's use something else to test on here. I'm going to go to the fillet tool. It's saying select first object, or and what are these options down here? Let's check the radius. It's 0. Okay, that's not good. I want to see some curvature there. So I'm going to specify the radius as, let's do 275, enter. Okay, select my first object. Well, it's a polyline I'm dealing with. We're not going to use the line example. We know how to do that from chamfer. So I'm going to go P for polyline, or I can click down here on polyline. Okay, now it's saying select one. There we go. Now it's giving me that 275 degree fillet on all the corners of a polyline. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So the way you specify the chamfer by indicating the first distance and then the second distance, a fillet works by specifying the radius. Okay, you don't need to do two separate measurements because the radius is a perfect segment of the circle. You only need to specify one measurement. So let's try that with a line. I mean, why not? Okay, fillet. Select first object, and I can still change my radius at this point. I don't have to do radius first. I can select the first line already, then change my radius. So hit R for radius, or click here, radius 275. Let's make it 123. Okay, enter second object. Okay, there we go. Now if I zoom in here, you'll see that gave me 123-degree radius. So if I measure from center point here, 123. Okay, it's bang on. So that's a cool way just to add rounded features to something. For example, and we're going to get to this in the block section, but let's say I'm drawing a bed. Okay, if you look at a mattress, it never has perfectly sharp corners like that. So if I want to make it look a little bit rounded, softer, take the hard edges off, I can use the fillet tool. This one, this actually, I want to fillet all of them, so I'm going to use the polyline again. Yep, there we go. Okay, so there, imagine I drew a mattress. Now it looks a little bit more cuddly because I've taken those hard edges off it. So that's a good use of the fillet tool. And the next one that we're going to look at is mirror. Okay, this one is an interesting one as well, and you'll use this quite often. So let me draw something absolutely mind-blowing here. I mean, this is incredible. Just wait and see. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's and then let's trim it a bit. A half moon shape, incredible. Okay, this is just amazing. Let's take it a step further. Yes, let's put a rectangle on top of it and trim away part of the rectangle. Oh my word, I don't know what that is, but we're going to mirror that. Okay, actually we're going to join it into a polyline. Edit, remember that's the command. Multiple, enter multiple. Yes, I want to join them. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to mirror this thing. Okay, I'm going to select it, and I can go up here to my mirror tool. It looks like this little pyramid. There's a white and a blue triangle, and now mirroring works around an axis line. Okay, so it's going to say specify the first point of the mirror line. So I want to mirror this thing from left to right. Okay, so my axis is going to go up down like this, and then you'll see it flips it or mirrors it across that axis. So I'm going to select up here as if I'm drawing a line, and then I'm going to, so I've clicked once to place this first point. Now I'm going to move my mouse down here, and you'll see as I move my mouse it's already showing me how the mirrored image of that object is going to sit. I'm going to move it down here. I'm going to click again. Erase source object. So this is asking, now that I've made a mirrored copy for you on this side, do you want to get rid of the one that you mirrored so that you just left with a copy, or do you want them both still there? So in this case, I'm going to say no to erase source objects. I do still want that one there. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. There we go. So I've made a mirrored copy now of this thing. And if I wanted to take both these objects and then mirror them vertically, I can do that too. I've selected them both, but let's, for shits and giggles, just do it the other way, which is to select the tool first instead of the object. Okay, so let's go mirror tool. Now it's going to say select objects. Duh. Okay, specify, I hit enter there. Specify first point of mirror line. I'm going to drag the line across here. I'm going to say erase source objects. Let's try yes, so you can see what that does. Yes, okay. So there, I took those objects, I mirrored them down here, and then I erased them afterwards. Now, because of the shape of this object, it looks almost, symmetrical. It's difficult to see that it was flipped, but it was. Okay, so that's a cool way to make a mirror image of objects. It's quite basic. And then explode is the next little tool we'll look at. And this was, I think we covered it briefly when we went to polylines. So let me draw I drew a rectangle. Let me draw a polyline here. Let's go down here. Let's get an arc. Let's do another arc there, and one there, and a line. Snapping to the rescue. Okay, that is a really weird object. So that's a polyline. Okay, now when I select it, it's giving me all the individual pieces. And this one as well, if I select it, it's giving me all 4 lines that make up that rectangle. Well, if I want to break it apart into its individual lines, I just select the object, and I'm going to select both of these actually, and I just type explode. Or I can use this little icon here. It looks like a little cube with all its sides like exploding off it. Okay, I'm going to click that. There we go. So it actually exploded. It looked like nothing happened, but now if I go over it, you'll see it giving me the individual line segments. Okay, a line, an arc, an arc. It's not letting me select it as one object anymore. It's actually exploded it apart. So really basic command to use. There you go, explode. And stretch is another one. So stretch has a interesting way of working, is that you have to use the selection window that goes from right to left, okay? The green crossing selection window, as it's called. So let me draw something here that I can demonstrate with this tool. Let's say I'm drawing a metal plate, okay? It's going to hold a stair or something in place. We're looking at the top view of it. There it is there. I've got a hole that I'm going to put a bolt through, let's say. And let's say I'm going to put a bolt through that side, and I'm going to also have a little slot over here for, oops, that didn't come out right. I had to undo there. Little slot over there. Okay, so let's say I've got this bolt, and I've spent a lot of time, this bolt plate, and I've spent a lot of time drawing it. Not really, but let's pretend I have. And my partner comes to me or whatever and says, oh, those steps, because we're building them in a circus, and the clowns wearing the clown shoes have to walk up them, we're going to need some really extra large steps here. Okay, so you need to adjust your bracket. So I could now take this thing, and I could maybe I could move it like this over here, and then I could take this and then stretch these out. Okay, that's a bit tedious, let's say, if it was more complicated than that. I'm just going to use the stretch command, okay, and there it is there, stretch. So I'm going to click on it, and so I want these holes to be in the same position relative to the edge of the plate, but I want to increase the distance between them, okay. I want to stretch out this plate, for example. So it's asking me to select the objects, and I can't select them this way with the blue window, okay. That's not going to work. It's just going to end up moving the objects, and I'll show you. I'm going to select them this way. I'm going to hit enter, specify base point. This is like the move tool from this point on. Click, click. You see, it didn't stretch this. All it did was move that. That's because I used the wrong kind of selection. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go back to the stretch tool and give it another go. Okay, select objects. So I don't want to select from left to right. I want to select from right to left. I want to see that green window. Okay, so I'm going to click down here, right to left. Okay, I'm selecting this whole thing here, this outside piece, which is one of the pieces I want to stretch, plus these two features. Okay, I'm done selecting objects. I'm going to hit enter to go to the next step of the tool. Now specify base point, and I'm just going to click here. And then now when I drag it out, you see that it is actually stretching this whole thing for me. Okay, and I just did it an arbitrary amount there, but if we do it specifically, go back to the stretch tool, select right to left, hit enter, specify base point. Let's make it this one. Now let's say I want to stretch it exactly, how big is that clown's shoe? Extra 100 mils. Okay, I'm just going to type in 100. There we go. Okay, that wasn't such a big change. I must have drawn this at a weird scale, but yeah, it moved to 100. Okay, it stretched 100. So that is that's how to use the stretch tool the correct way. It all comes down to using that selection window, really. But yeah, it's a cool thing to know. And then the last one in this chapter is scale, okay? And I can just type SC for that as well, or you can find it up here. Looks like these two little squares inside one another. That's the scale tool. And it just helps to remember that 100% scale is represented as just 1 in AutoCAD. So if you want to scale something to twice its size, its scale factor, according to AutoCAD, will be 2. And if you want to scale something to half its size, or 50%, okay, that is half of 1, so it's 0.5. We're going to type it as a decimal, of course. So I'll give you an example here. So let's say I want to now take these objects and I want to scale them and make them bigger, okay? I can go up to the scale tool here, click on it. It's going to say specify a base point. So when I use the tool, we'll see what this is, but this is basically the point at which it will scale from, okay? I'm going to choose this bottom corner. No, let me choose that corner there, okay? There you go. So you see, as soon as I move my mouse, if I zoom out here, I mean, it's giving me this huge, it seems to be so massive because my scale factor is reading at 1000 right now. So that is really big. Let's say I want to make it twice as big. I'm just going to type in 2, okay? Forget about where your mouse is right now. You can just type in the number 2, hit enter. There. It is now twice as big. So I'm going to undo that and create a copy of it. Over there. So this will give us a reference. So I'm going to scale that again. Okay, go to the scale tool, select my base point. What is my scale factor? It's saying specified. Okay, 2. There. So there's the original. That one I made twice as big. Okay, let's undo that. Let's select these objects. Let's go to scale, specify my base point, that one, my scale factor. Well, I want to make it half the size of this one, okay? So that would be 0.5. So I'm going to type in 0.5, enter, there we go. So now you see that's the original. I've made one that is now half as big, okay? So that's a good way to use a scale tool. You can do it by clicking, but you'll see for some reason it makes the mouse go like AWOL and gives you this huge scale factor that you'd never use. It's easier just to type it in, okay? But just remember, 1 is no change at all. If you scale something by 1, it doesn't change. That's its original size. So you have to think of everything as kind of a relative to 1, 1 being 100%, 2 being 200%, 50% being 0.5, you know, etc. So the other thing I want to tell you about scale is instead of using a scale factor as your input measurement, you can use another object as a reference. Okay, so the way you do this is you select the object you want to scale. You go to the scale tool. You select the base point as per normal, and then you see at the bottom of the command window here, it's giving me an option of copy and reference. Reference is the one I want, so I'm going to hit R for that, or I can click on it. Okay, R, enter. Now it's asking me to specify the reference length. I'm going to specify this as my length because this is the part of the object that I want to make match the one above it. Okay, this top length. So now what it's done is it's let me grab that corner that I can then line up, and then using my tracking I can drag down a little point from there, and I can basically snap it. That reference length there, I can snap it to this point here and make sure that they're the same space. And I can do the same with this one. I'm going to go scale again. My base point will also be that top left corner. I'm going to go to reference. I'll click it this time. I want this top edge to be my reference, and then I'm going to snap it to there. There we go. So although these shapes weren't the same height as that shape, okay, the up-down measurement, I got them all to scale in their width to exactly the right measurement I wanted by using that reference option. Okay, so that's just something a little bit extra. It's a different way to use scale, and you might use that more, in fact, than the first version. Okay. Welcome back. You may notice I'm wearing a jacket. That is because it is really, really cold here. Really cold. And we're going to learn about arrays. Okay, so I'm going to draw something topical here. Let's draw a door. Okay, let's imagine that we are designing a door for a client. Let's put a doorknob on the door. Here we go. Okay, so imagine that we are looking at a door in elevation. Okay, in other words, we're looking the door front on. And I'm going to add a couple of features here in the door. And instead of copying and pasting the square now to fill this whole space, I'm going to use the array tool, and I'm going to make it. It's going to make copies for me in a layout of excuse me, a layout of columns and rows. Okay, like a table. So I've got the object selected, but you remember we can also just go straight for the tool instead. And there it is up there. We're still dealing in the modify panel here. So I'm going to go do rectangular array, and later we'll go through a polar array. We won't do path, but you'll catch on to that eventually. So rectangular for now. Let's click on the rectangular array. It's going to ask me select objects. Okay, what are the objects? What are the objects that I want to array? It's this little square. Enter. Okay, and then you'll see after I hit enter, it took me to this new tab that popped up here on the ribbon, which is array creation. And from here, I can change all the properties that define this array. So you can see immediately that was my original object down there. It's given me 2 rows above it, and it's given me 3 columns, including the column that is in there. It's giving me 3 columns to the right of it. Okay, and if I use these little grips, for instance, I can take this one on the corner, and you'll see by just moving it out here. Come on. Did I grab it? There. Okay. Look at that. Okay, that just worked out lucky that it fits in there so neatly. But you can see I'm just moving this grip around now, and you can see how I'm affecting the array. Okay, it's like I'm adding or subtracting columns and rows from the table, and these are all just copies of that original object. So I can use this to define how many of these little features I want to fill in the door here, or I can, and I just grabbed in that corner array. This lets me, that corner grip, this lets me change the array, up, down, left, right simultaneously. But if I want to just leave it at, say, 3 columns and increase the rows, I can click this one over here, like this. There we go. Okay, and then I can change the spacing between these things as well, because you'll notice, the distance from here to here, if you look at my mouse cursor, okay, I can change that, and I can do it by just grabbing this grip down here. Okay, there we go. You see, so I'm just moving my mouse up and down, and that's changing the spacing of those things. So that's a cool way, just using the mouse to play around with the array. But if you want to get really specific, and you usually do when you're drawing things for interior architectural design, you can enter in the exact particulars of the array up here as well. So I can say I want 4 columns, and where it says rows here, I can say I want 7, and I can change my spacing. So this is the spacing between columns, okay, and then the spacing between rows is on this side. So you'll see there's a little dividing line here. This is the column stuff, this is the row stuff. So if I want to change my row spacing, I would need to type in this area here, and this will give me this spacing here. So let's go 400, that should be quite narrow. Yeah, in fact it's so narrow that the objects are actually intersecting with themselves. So we need to go maybe at least 600. Tap that in, 600. Okay, yeah, that's kind of in the ballpark, but I wanted to fill this door evenly, so I'm going to go back to having 3,700. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now that I'm happy, I can just click close array, okay? Or I can right click also and say enter, or press enter. Any of those will work. And another thing to note about arrays is that, remember, these are all essentially duplicates of that original item. So I've just clicked on the array here, and you'll see that if I press escape, the ribbon goes back to normal. But if I select the array, it takes me straight to the array tab on the ribbon. Okay, creates a tab for array, and it gives me useful tools here if I want to change this array later. And if I want to change the source item, like let's say I want to put a circle in here, I only need to change that one thing, and because it's in an array, it will duplicate that change throughout all of the rest of the objects in the array. And I'll show you how to do that now. Once this tab is open on the ribbon, just go here to edit source, okay? Yes, edit source of associative array. Okay, so right now you'll see that it's letting me now modify this little source object and play around with it. I'm going to add a circle in there. There, you see it popped up throughout the whole array. And let's do another little feature. A little line like that. Okay, enter. Okay, now I'm finished making my changes. I'm going to go back to edit array, and I'm just going to go to save changes. Okay, it's up here, save changes. Now if I zoom out and pan, okay, there you'll see that that change I made to the source object has been carried out throughout all of its duplicates in the array. Cool, and then the next thing we're going to look at is a polar array. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, that looks good. Cool. Now I'm going to use polar array, and it's hiding just underneath here, the rectangular array. Okay, if you click down next to it there, polar array is over there. So that means making duplicates around a pole almost, okay, an axis, like a merry-go-round almost. So it's asking me to specify that center point of the array. Now imagine we're looking at a table from the top here, and that's a tub chair. Okay, I want to now create a whole lot of duplicate tub chairs to fill this table out. Okay, like I'm creating a dining setting or something. So I'm going to specify the center point of my polar array as the center of the as the center of the table. Okay, I'm going to click there. Oh, and already it's given me just like a basic starting setup of an array here. So you see this is very neatly given me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And just like with the polar array, it takes you to this tab it creates on the ribbon, and you can change the settings here. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. So I've got 6 items. I can change that if I want to have 8 chairs around the table. Remember, the original counts as 1. So I'm going to type in 8 here, enter. There, so you can see it's updated to give me 8 chairs around the table. That's really cramped though. Let's go back to, let's do 5 maybe, okay? There we go. So it's taken me down to 5. And the same way that I could change the spacing between the rows and columns on the rectangular polar array, I can change the angles that separate all the copies on a polar array as well. And I can define how much of that whole sort of sweep, that whole polar axis I want to fill with copies. Like maybe right now 360 degrees would place all the copies around, you know, the complete circle of the table. But if I want to, let's say I'm designing a restaurant or there's like a performance going on, some people, I don't want them to sit with their backs to the stage, for example. So I only want them to sit around 1/2 of the table, okay? That way nobody gets a bad view. So I'm going to specify my fill, instead of being 360, is half of that, half the table, 180 degrees. Okay, there. So now it's placed 5 chairs, I zoomed out, it's placed 5 chairs in 180 degrees around the table. And that's still pretty cramped, so let's say 4. Okay, so now that I'm done, I can just say close array. And there, it's given me, you know, 4 chairs that are perfectly in a half moon shape around this table. And the nice thing about grips is I can change this as well. I've just selected that now. So I went from a state of having nothing selected. I clicked and selected it. Very simple, like I will select any object. And I can take this grip and then I can specify the, what is the specify? The fill angle. Yeah, see it's taken it back to, well, taken it to 300. And I can change it over here, change that there, maybe take it back to where it was, wait, too far back there, okay. And then if I change, if I grab this grip here, I can stretch the radius, okay. These seats are like sitting really far away from the table, but I can bring them right in again, you know, almost to where they tuck underneath. Yeah, and you can work out restaurant spacing or something like that. So yeah, that's polar array for you. And you can play around with those settings, and remember that if you want to make a change to the tub chair, like make it more detailed, I just select the array, I go to edit source, okay, the same way we did before. I select this one here as the one that I want, and it gives me a little window. Are you sure you want to do that? And you're like, yeah, I'm sure I want to do that. Okay, and now I can make a little adjustment to this one. Edit array, save changes. Okay, there we go. Now that change that I made to the tub chair is now, you know, replicate itself throughout the whole polar array. Great. And the next one we're going to look at is offset. Okay, so I'm not going to give you the dictionary definition of offset, but imagine it's just, you know, it's sort of like it follows the contour of another line or shape, okay, but it steps off it a little bit. So here's a rectangle. Let's move it over here. Okay, offset is this little tool right there. Okay, there it is under this modify pane. I click on it and it says what is my offset distance. So this is going to create a line that is offset from this one. I can choose if I want it to be offset to the inside or to the outside, and it wants to know how much would I like it to be offset by. Okay, I'm going to say 100 millimeters for this one, so I'm going to type in 100. Okay, select object to offset, that one. And now let me zoom in here. Okay, now it's asking me, and I haven't clicked yet, if I want to do it to the inside or the outside. So I'm just moving my mouse in and out of the object to specify which side of the offset I want. Let's do the outside. Okay, there we go. So it's just created something that was offset 100 millimeters exactly outside of that line. So I can do this with a polyline as well, and it will do it with curves. So let's draw one here. Okay, good enough. Now this looks pretty crazy, right? It's a polyline, but I can still use the offset tool. So I'm going to click on offset, specify offset distance. Let's make this one bigger. Let's go 260. Enter. Okay, and now I haven't clicked yet. I still have the option to move it inside or outside. Let's do outside this time. There you go. And now I haven't done anything else. I haven't pressed enter. It's still allowing me to offset a line further. Okay, the tool's not completely finished yet. I can just carry on clicking on that offset and offset some more. Okay, imagine you're creating steps into a pool, something like this, and you want to just have that contour, you know, duplicated but offset a little bit. So I can click on this one and I add a step in there, and I click on this one, I can click and add another step, and I can just keep going until eventually the geometry is going to start intersecting with itself, and then you'll find the tool might fail. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, it just figures out that there's no more space left there, and it jumps in a little bit. But this is going to be so useful when you get to a sharp corner, it actually creates a little arc around it like that. So it's a really friendly tool to create steps and just crazy geometric patterns like this. And you know, you could draw the inside of a wall in a house and then use the offset tool to jump to the outside edge of that wall, you know, without having to go draw two separate lines. You just draw the one that's the inside and then offset it the right amount, the thickness of the wall, in other words, to get your outer line. So that's a really convenient tool to use, and trust me, you will use it a lot. And that is the penultimate tool in this chapter. The last one we're going to look at is the measure tool. Now, I personally just use the line tool for this. I prefer it because I can type L and it's always right there. To get to measure, okay, I need to go to, where is it? Utilities over here, okay, on the side, and then I have to click measure. That's like a whole extra click. That's why I don't use it that often, but I'll show you how it works anyway. There are some cases that you can measure area and volume if you're working in 3D, but we're not going to do that. And perimeter distance and that kind of stuff. So that's especially useful when creating site plans, or when you create an internal room, for example. It's very often you have to specify how many square meters the floor space is, and so you can do that using the measure tool in the area function. So I'll give you the most basic use of the tool first. Let's just draw some random geometry here. Okay, I'll go to utilities, I click on measure. Okay, so there, the other options down here go away. Okay, there, right there, see? Okay, if I hover over it, it's going to show me the tooltip. It's going to be irritating sometimes. But there, if I go down to measure, you can see all the options there. Let's start with the first one, which is distance. So I can specify the first point there, and now my second point will be that distance. I click here, 6089. Okay, I can choose if I want to have this distance represented to me as something else, like an area. I can't, it's just one line, so distance is fine. Okay, it's 6089 millimeters, like, yay. Okay, and I can take this one and I can click there again, and it'll tell me that distance, 331. Okay, not so amazing. Let's try the other one though. Back to utilities, measure, let's do area. Okay, and this is another weird thing with AutoCAD, but because we are working in millimeters, remember, even though I may have drawn a room that's 2 meters by 3 meters, when it tells me the area, it's going to give it to me in square millimeters. So you have to divide by 1,000,000, okay, to get to the actual meter, the square meterage. So here we go, let's try this. Okay, I just clicked utilities, measure, and then I went to area. Okay, now it's going to ask me to draw lines around a perimeter, or to define an area to measure. So I'm just going to say specify the first point. I'm going to put a line down there, I'm going to put a line down there, and you'll see now as I'm moving around, it's starting to create a green area of that it's going to measure. So I'm actually going to include this weird shape on the side here. And I'm just clicking from corner to corner to draw this area tool around here. And then I'm on the last point there. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to say area, please. And then it's going to tell me right down here. You see there, that's my area. 365 mil, I don't know. Okay, it's a lot of millimeters, but if I divide that number by 1,000,000, okay, because 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000. I'll get the meters, and I'm pretty sure that it's 36 square meters. Yeah. Anyway, so unfortunately, I haven't yet found a fix for AutoCAD in which will just tell me like what is the square meterage instead of the square millimeterage. Like, who even uses that? But that's one of the little idiosyncrasies of AutoCAD. You know, you just have to divide it by 1,000,000. But when you get used to working with these spaces, you tend to just ignore those other, numbers in the result. You just tend to look at the first one. You kind of get a feel for if you're designing 100 square meters versus 3. So it becomes intuitive, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, a little interesting fact there about the measure tool. It's good for some things and bad for other things. And that's the end of chapter 5. The next time we meet virtually, I suppose, in some kind of digital way, we'll be going through chapter 6, which is we're going to cover blocks. Okay, cool. And happy AutoCADing, and practice all the time. Practice everything that we've gone through today. Draw some crazy stuff and try the tools out for yourself, and just get better, because it makes it a whole easier as well. Okay, bye.